We are pleased to have with us now Milton Cheng. He is Global Chair of Baker McKenzie. Milton, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Now, in your work there, you do a lot of legal work for mergers and acquisitions and IPOs. I'm just curious what that pipeline looks like. Is this going to be a year of a lot of deal making and companies going public?
Well, what we forecast is that for 2020, there's probably going to be a bit of a softening. It's just the macroeconomic trends and people being a bit more cautious with trade war sentiment and so on. So we're forecasting M&A globally to go down 20% or so.
20%? That seems like a lot to me.
That seems, well, we've come off a few reasonably strong years. Mm-hmm. Capital raising may be a little bit less than that, but still will come off a bit. However, absent any black swan event, we were anticipating that it will rise again in 2021. And now, of course, with the phase one truce, I guess if you can call it that, it's a good sign that perhaps may spark a bit more positive sentiment.
Does the election have anything to do with that? The fact that there's no clarity yet around the U.S. presidential election, or no? That's not part of the thinking process.
Yeah, well, sometimes yes, it is. Yes, it is, and it's one of several factors that are taken into account. But I think overall, most of the investments going into the U.S. Are for the long term. So either if there's a diminution in it, I think that's usually just more based on broader general factors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Milton, you're based in Hong Kong, and there's so many questions to ask about the region, obviously huge news stories. But let's start off with the Chinese economy and your take on that impact on global business, because it's opaque from where we sit to an extent. How is the Chinese economy doing? What does that mean for your business and for the global economy writ large in 2020?
Well, I mean, I guess I would say three things. First of all, the Chinese economy is changing, moving to a new phase. You've heard that from various Chinese officials and also from business leaders. So it's not going to be double-digit growth of that sort anymore, but there's still pretty robust growth for an economy of that size. Second thing I would say is that the long-term plan, whether it's through the Belt and Road Initiative, whether it's through the Greater Bay Area Initiative, is still a forecast for pretty strong growth going forward, and not just in China, but also outward from China. The third thing I'd say is, trade wars. Now with the trade truce, there was some fear of impact on that, but the trade will flow. Whether it flows as much between China and US, it will still flow, and it will flow to other parts of the world if needed.
What is your assessment of the protests that we've been seeing in Hong Kong, their impact on the economy there, and perhaps spillover into other economies in the region?
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole situation is a really challenging one. It's been divisive, it's been of concern, but Hong Kong's resilient. Hong Kong's resilient. The issues are complex. It's good to see Carrie Lam, a chief executive here in Davos, yes, with a strong contingent, pretty significant presence, and engaging quite openly with the media and with business leaders and thought leaders from around the world. And of course, now there's the coronavirus impact as well.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, and I mean,
yet another challenge.
Yet another challenge. But on the coronavirus, I think, look, I remember I've been in Hong Kong for 27 years. I remember when we were going through SARS, yes, and people were afraid to punch the buttons on the lift. And people were afraid to shake hands and did the Chinese way of greeting. We've learned a lot from that. The public health system now is much more on guard. There are cases. Hopefully, it won't be too many more cases. It is a challenging situation, but the systems are there, and Hong Kong is resilient.
The reaction seems very swift. They've actually, I think the Chinese government has stopped all travel in and out of a particular region where this virus
Wuhan,
is,
where
right?
11 million people.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so, what are the implications of that?
Well, hopefully the positive implication is that there will be some ability to manage this potential crisis. One of the learnings from, whether it's SARS, whether it's avian flu, is quick, early, decisive action. So,
Milton, I want to ask you about the Chinese financial markets, because despite the trade war, the Chinese seemed intent on opening up those markets to Western companies, and that seems to be going full speed ahead in 2020. What are the implications there?
Well, I think China has for some time been looking at gradual opening up of the markets. And the financial market opening has run its sort of growth spell from positive list to negative list to minority stakes, and now hopefully with the full opening up in April this year, we will see some growth from the international financial institutions in China and a longer term, broader and more broad-ranging growth.
Milton Cheng, Global Chair of Baker McKenzie, a job once held by Christine Lagarde.
Little tidbit.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So
Bet you
maybe
didn't know
more
that.
things ahead for you. Who knows, right?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for
Other big
joining us
positions.
today.
Thank you.